You must have heard about a number of concerned scientists that have written to WHO about the mode of transmission for the coronavirus and COVID-19. The scientists are concerned that the coronavirus is spread in the environment due to something called airborne transmission. In today's 5-minute video, we will try to find out what does the airborne transmission mean and what, if anything, can we, the general public, do about it in order to prevent ourselves and our families. You see, whenever we speak, cough, or sneeze, we generate two types of respiratory particles. The larger particles, which are often called droplets, that are heavier in weight and larger in size, as well as a smaller particle, which are called aerosols. These are submicron particles, and it has been well known since the 1930s that the most respiratory diseases are spread through the particles that come out of our mouth when we speak, talk, or cough. Certain microorganisms like measles, tuberculosis, and some other viruses can ride on very small submicron aerosols, which can travel longer and linger in the air for a longer amount of times. The small aerosols can also be carried on airstreams like air conditioning and travel farther distances. These can potentially infect other people in the environment that are further away from the 6 feet. So the concern is that the traditional guideline of staying 6 feet apart and washing our hands repeatedly are not going to be enough to counter such spread. So what is the evidence that the most recent coronavirus can spread through the small aerosol particles and infect people who are farther than 6 feet? First of all, there is no conclusive evidence. Secondly, it is very, very hard to actually prove this concept. All we have is indirect evidence and experimental studies. Studies coming out of China for the first SARS epidemic did show that in certain conditions, like, for example, in an apartment complex in Hong Kong, transmission did happen due to fine aerosols, and people who were in the same building but farther away than 6 feet did get infected through leaky drainage pipes. In the current pandemic, hospitals in China and Hong Kong have studied air around the patient care areas and found viral particles, although it is unclear whether these are able to cause infections. In a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine, under experimental conditions, with heavy viral loads, they did find that the indoor viral particles can be lingering in the air for up to 3 hours after exposure. There is also a very interesting study out of Wuhan that showed that a family sitting about 10 meters apart in a restaurant got infected without any direct contact, presumably due to aerosol particles riding on the air-conditioned ventilator streams. So what does it mean? It means that there is some evidence in a crowded indoor setting with poor ventilation, just 6 feet separation and frequent hand washing alone may not be enough to protect you from getting COVID-19. So what can you do about it? Simple, effective solution. In a number of studies done in US, China, and Europe, it has been shown that simple cloth coverings covering your mouth and nose can significantly reduce the amount of droplets and aerosol that get released in the air. So do yourself a favor and others a favor by wearing masks when you're indoors, especially in public places that are poorly ventilated. But does that work? Well, it sure looks like it. Look at these two graphs. The top one is from New York City, and the bottom one is looking at the whole of the US. In New York City, they started the social distancing protocols at around March 16th. The governor also ordered a stay-at-home order at around March 23rd at that point. Look at the new cases that still kept going up during all that time. The face covering order was placed was made mandatory on April 17th, and the infections declined, the new infections declined pretty significantly after that. You can see a similar pattern that emerged out of Italy. Now, this is not a direct causation. You cannot prove that that was the only thing that caused it to cause the new infections to go down, but it is a pretty strong evidence. So do wear a mask and read more about it on the links that are shown on the video. Thank you very much.